Joe chose to grow heritage wheat because it would be more resilient to the local climatic conditions as opposed to modern wheat, which is bred for kind of optimal conditions, the sort of conditions that you get in like East Anglia. And modern wheat is also often bred for like a high chemical input. And because Joe is growing in an agroecological way and is really mindful of the biodiversity on his farm, he wanted to grow a heritage wheat which wouldn't require that kind of level of chemical input. So Joe also grew a crop of naked oats, and this is quite innovative because oats usually have a hull on them, which is so it makes them quite hard to process and eat, and we don't have any oat mills left in Wales in order to process them. So Joe's trial was a huge success because he was able to grow and harvest some heritage wheat and some naked oats, and that's quite exciting because you don't really see those crops grown anymore in the Dyfi Valley, and they are crops that were grown here in the past, so it gives us loads of hope and excitement for the future that we can be growing more grains in the Dyfi Valley.
I'm Joe Hope. I farm here at Cefn and I also now have land that I'm farming down at Ynyslas. So I've been growing bits of grain for a few years on a small scale with the Dyfi Grain Growers Collective, and had been interested in scaling up, and then I bought new land down at Ynyslas, and so it was really good timing that the Tyfu Dyfi project came along at that time, because that gave a bit of financial support and a bit of kind of support in terms of like other people doing experimental things at the same time, so it sort of felt slightly less crazy, I suppose, in a way. So basically started off by kind of asking a few people about the land, and people say, well, there had been crops grown there before, so it was sort of reason to think that it might be worth a go. I'm interested in growing crops really for local use, so the April bearded wheat the intention for that was to be used in local baking, and that some of that wheat has now gone off and has been made into bread with rye and roses, and then the naked oats, the intention for the naked oats is for that to be made into oat milk. The plan is I'll be teaming up with Sophia at Dyfi Dairy, and we'll use their premises to actually make the product, because they have the food safe food preparation area that is suitable for making the product. So April bearded wheat, really that was quite a pragmatic decision. We'd grown some April bearded wheat before, so we had grain that we could use as seed, and also I decided to do a spring crop for various reasons. That land can get quite wet over the winter. I'm not quite sure how a crop would do overwintering in a wet field as well. But the other reason for preferring spring crops is that spring sown crops have been in the past, they have been very valuable for farmland bird species. Yeah, so it's always exciting, you've put seed in the ground and it just looks like bare ground, so then it's a waiting game, and sure enough, after a couple of weeks we started to see little green shoots, and it looked good to start with. It had quite good, it looked like quite good coverage, and gradually through the summer they grew up to look like proper crops. And I think it was a very dry summer, so possibly the grains didn't fill as much as they might have done if we'd had a kind of in a perfect summer. We might have expected a little bit slightly higher yields, just from the point of view of the crops being able to access more water. So I'd say that the harvesting is one of the most is probably the most exciting part of the process in a way. It's that bit where you actually gather up what you've grown, and it was an opportunity to use my combine harvester, which is we've only used one season before. I mean, it's always something you're doing in good weather. It's a bit like haymaking like that. So you always have these amazing memories. It's beautiful weather. It's a tremendous feeling controlling this huge beast and hoovering up grains as you go around the field. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think that in many ways it's a shame that people don't grow much grains around here. It makes for a less diverse landscape as a whole when it's mostly grass, either pasture or for silage. But I can absolutely see why people don't grow grain anymore. The climate is much more challenging than other parts of the country, and now markets are just generally larger, and local markets are much less important than the big commodities markets. So it doesn't, from a financial point of view, it makes more sense to specialise your grain production in eastern England and your livestock production in hilly parts of the country. But I think there is a little bit of hope in the point of view of the growing interest in local food, and really starting to see food less in terms of a commodity and bringing farmers involved in in the production of actual food rather than commodities. So that's why, that's sort of why I've bothered in a way, because I feel like it's worth exploring this. If we can I think a lot of people have been really, really positive about the idea of a local oat milk, because it's a big market now. There's a lot of oat milk being consumed, and a lot of the people who are drinking oat milk have, their choices are sort of around kind of ethics and sustainability, and they like the idea of a local product. And similarly, bread has gone from being something that you just buy in a plastic packet from the supermarket and don't really think about, to something that people are realising, well, it's a staple part of our diet, so maybe we should value it a bit more than just as kind of as calories and carbohydrates, but as something that has a particular taste and a particular significance in our lives. So I think it's inherently tricky and risky prospect to try and grow grains to produce food for local consumption, but I think it's worth a go.